and took over the space where my mother's warmth used to live. A few months later, Clara got pregnant, and suddenly, the house felt too small for all of us. My father and Clara made plans to kick me out. One evening, he called me into the living room with Clara standing beside him. "Pack your things, Paul. You're leaving my house. We need space for the baby." I was so shocked that I couldn't even move. I was 16, still a kid, with nowhere to go. I begged him to reconsider, but he shoved a small bag at me, telling me to take my clothes and get lost. Clara didn't say a word. She just watched as I stuffed my belongings into the bag with shaky hands. That night, I slept on the streets for the first time. I cried from the cold and hunger I was feeling. I was depressed and lost in a world that didn't care if I survived. For months, I scraped by doing odd jobs like washing cars, sweeping shop floors, and carrying groceries for tips. I slept in alleys, under bridges, anywhere I could hide from the rain. One afternoon, I was sitting on a small table, counting the coins I'd earned. My father was a monster. He was a man who thrived on control and cruelty. Growing up, I always watched him mistreat my mother, who was a strong, hard-working woman who carried our family on her shoulders. She was the breadwinner, the one who owned the house we lived in and the cars we drove. She worked long hours as a nurse. Her hands were always busy, yet she would always smile and say she believes everything will be fine. But my father, a jobless drunk who spent his days gambling away her earnings, made her life hell. He'd scream at her for the smallest things, like dinner being late or her working overtime. Sometimes he'd hit her, leaving bruises for her to hide under long sleeves the next day. The stress ate at her, making her look wrinkly and older than her age. Eventually, her heart gave out when I was 12. The doctors said it was a heart attack, but I knew that it was my father's cruelty that killed her. After she died, his anger turned on me. I became his punching bag and a scapegoat for his failures. He treated me like trash, calling me useless, a burden, and a reminder of the woman he'd broken. The slightest provocation, like spilling a glass of water or a glance he didn't like, earned me a slap or a fist. I learned to make myself small and to tiptoe around his temper, but it was never enough. My mother's absence left a void that he filled with rage, and I was too young to escape it. When I was 15, my father brought home a new wife. She was a woman named Clara. She wasn't cruel, but she wasn't kind either. She just indifferent to whatever was happening. She moved into my mother's house with her cheap perfume and loud laugh, and took over the space where my mother's warmth used to live. A few months later, Clara got pregnant, and suddenly, the house felt too small for all of us. My father and Clara made plans to kick me out. One evening, he called me into the living room with Clara standing beside him. "Pack your things, Paul. You're leaving my house. We need space for the baby." I was so shocked that I couldn't even move. I was 16, still a kid, with nowhere to go. I begged him to reconsider, but he shoved a small bag at me, telling me to take my clothes and get lost. Clara didn't say a word. She just watched as I stuffed my belongings into the bag with shaky hands. That night, I slept on the streets for the first time. I cried from the cold and hunger I was feeling. I was depressed and lost in a world that didn't care if I survived. For months, I scraped by doing odd jobs like washing cars, sweeping shop floors, and carrying groceries for tips. I slept in alleys, under bridges, anywhere I could hide from the rain. One afternoon, I was sitting on a small table, counting the coins I'd earned, when I heard a scream. I turned to see a woman who was struggling with a thief trying to snatch her purse. Without thinking, I ran over and tackled the guy. I'd become strong from living on the streets. After giving him a few punches, he ran away, leaving the purse behind. The woman couldn't stop thanking me as I handed her purse back to her. I thought she would leave after, but she suddenly started studying my face.
"You look just like my sister. Are you Paul? Paul Williams?"
I told her that's my name. I was confused at how shocked she looked until she introduced herself as Aunt Sandra, my mother's elder sister, who'd been living abroad in Spain for years. She'd come back to the States for a short visit. She took me to a restaurant for a meal. As we were eating, she asked why I was on the streets. I told her about how my father had kicked me out to make room for his new wife and baby. She looked so angry.
"That man, he's a disgrace. We should have him arrested for what he's done to you.
I begged her not to do that because I didn't want more drama. I didn't want to face him again. If she got him arrested and it gets to the court, I might have to start living with him again. As much as I wanted a roof under my head, I didn't want it from him. I just wanted to move on. Aunt Sandra seemed to agree. She told me she was leaving for Spain in 2 days and insisted I come with her. I'd never left the country, never even been on a plane. Since the streets had nothing for me, I agreed. Aunt Sandra immediately began preparation. She bought me new clothes, a proper suitcase, and other things. 2 weeks later, we left the States. When we landed in Spain, my life changed. Aunt Sandra enrolled me in a good school. She bought me more good clothes and shoes. She gave me everything. When she noticed how much I loved football, she asked if I'd like to know more about the sport. As soon as I agreed, she enrolled me in a football academy. Years passed, and my hard work paid off. By 25, I'd become a famous footballer, a striker for a top Premier League club. My name was on billboards and my face on sports ads. I was filthy rich, with a penthouse in Spain, houses in other countries, a garage full of cars, and endorsement deals that made my bank account swell. I owed it all to Aunt Sandra, who'd become my rock and my only real family. One day, Clara suddenly called me.
Paul, I need your help. Your father has been going crazy since I had my child. He's beating me and our daughter, Lisa. We can't take it anymore. I'm so sorry for what we did to you. I was wrong. Please help us.
Her words made me feel both angry and satisfied. She was facing the same thing my mother faced before her death. I told her I couldn't do much to help. After all, they'd kicked me out together. Clara kept begging and crying. I thought about the times when I was still back at home. I remembered that she never laid her hands on me. She was probably that way because she was scared of not supporting my father. When I told Aunt Sandra about it, she told me to go ahead and help Clara if I wanted to. So, I thought of a way to help. I asked Clara if she had somewhere to go if my father was out of the picture. She said yes, that her sister who lives around would take her and Lisa in. She apologized again. I decided it was time for revenge. Aunt Sandra had told me years ago that my mother, knowing my father's greed, had given her the ownership papers to our house. My mother never trusted my father with it, and now those papers were my weapon. I flew back to the States, my first time returning since I'd left. I hired a sharp lawyer who reviewed the documents and confirmed they were airtight. Then I called my father. I didn't greet him or let him try to talk to me either. I'm calling to inform you that you have only 7 days to leave the house. It's not yours. It never was. I have the papers to prove it. I will be claiming the house. He laughed, thinking I was bluffing, and hung up. But I wasn't playing games. Over the next week, I coordinated with my lawyer and hired a team of bouncers. On the 7th day, I arrived at the house with them. Clara and Lisa were already gone. She'd texted me that morning, saying they'd left for her sister's place. The house didn't look good. It was as if my father never thought of painting the place or retouching it. I walked in to see him drinking on the couch. He jumped up when he saw me. "Paul, what the hell are you doing here?" I didn't answer. I simply signaled to the bouncers, who started grabbing his things and tossing them onto the lawn. He shouted and cursed at me, but I held up the ownership papers, letting him see my mother's name, my aunt's signature, and the legal stamps. That was enough to make him crumble. He tried to fight back by swinging at one of the bouncers, but they restrained him easily and dragged him outside. He fell to his knees on the sidewalk, begging, "Paul, please, I'm your father. Don't do this. I have nowhere to go." I felt no pity or guilt. I'd spent years rebuilding myself from the wreckage he'd left me in. Now it was his turn to suffer. I sold the house the next day at a cheap price because I didn't need the money. I earned more than enough from football. I just wanted the house gone. With the sale finalized, I began preparing to return to Spain. My flight was booked for 4 days later, and I spent the time tying up loose ends, eager to leave the States and my father's shadow behind. 2 days after the sale, as I was driving to see my lawyer, my father suddenly appeared on the road. He flagged me down. I stopped and rolled down my window to hear him. "I know I've been a bad father. I've realized it now. Forgive me, son. I'll change. I swear to you, I'll change. Please forgive me." I got out of my car to face him. He looked so hopeful, so I decided to shatter the hope by telling him I had nothing for him. "You're a bad, dirty man. You don't deserve any form of pity from anyone. I want you to get it into your head that I'll never help you. Never!" His pitiful face instantly switched to an angry one. He raised his hand to slap me, but I grabbed it and flung it off. I was angry. How dare him try to slap me? I grabbed him by the collar and gave him the beating of his life. I hit him for every pain he put my mother and I through. I ignored his pleas and beat him until I was satisfied. I got back into my car without a word and drove off. My knuckles were bruised, but my heart was finally satisfied. On the day I was set to leave, as I was driving to the airport, I saw my father running after the car, throwing stones at my car and shouting at me to stop. I knew he still wanted to beg for forgiveness. I would have stopped, but I didn't feel like bruising my knuckles again, so I kept driving. It was as he kept running after me that a car hit him from behind. I saw his body tumble to the ground, but I kept driving. I wouldn't let him pull me back into his chaos. If he was going to die from the hit, then so be it. At the airport, I boarded my flight and finally left the country. Later, I heard through a cousin that the driver who hit him had taken him to a hospital. My father survived, but his legs were shattered, which meant that he'd never walk again. Now, he lived on the streets as a homeless and disabled beggar. I felt no atom of pity for him. He deserved it. As for me, well, I am doing well for myself, and I am also sponsoring Lisa, my stepsister. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Nora, and this is my story. I was the older child, but my parents never really saw me. My younger brother Tommy was their everything. From the day he was born, they worshipped him. Our mom would hold him close, her eyes shining, calling him her perfect boy. Dad would ruffle his hair and say he was their legacy, while I was just Nora to them. I worked hard to please them. I brought home perfect grades, cleaned my room, helped with chores. But they barely noticed. Tommy would draw a messy picture, and they would hang it on the wall like it was art. Tommy would smile, and they would act like the sun came out. If I tried to talk to them about anything important, they would brush me off.
Nora, stop bothering me. Your brother needs me right now.
I cooked dinner, scrubbed floors, did everything to make them love me. But Tommy was their favorite. He could break my toys, lie to get me in trouble, and they would laugh.
Boys are like that, Nora. Don't be so upset.
That's how they always defended him, making me look like I was wrong for being upset. I cried alone most nights, wondering why I wasn't good enough. I tried harder, stayed quiet, swallowed my hurt. But nothing changed. Tommy was their golden child, and I was the shadow they ignored. Tommy grew up spoiled and selfish. He knew he could get away with anything. By 20, he was handsome, charming, and cruel. He married Sarah, a kind girl who believed his sweet words. She thought he was her dream come true, but Tommy didn't love her. He loved himself and only married her because he wanted to be called a married man. Within a year, he was cheating. He didn't even hide it. Sarah found messages on his phone, perfume on his shirts, receipts from hotels. She confronted him.
Tommy, how could you do this? I trusted you.
Calm down, Sarah. Did you think I belong to you alone? There are so many better ladies who want me. You're lucky I'm with you.
Sarah begged for a divorce when she couldn't take his cheating anymore. Tommy just laughed at her and called her stupid.
You think you can leave me? You're nothing without me.
He refused to let her go. Not because he cared, but because he wanted control. Sarah stayed, trapped in a marriage that crushed her spirit. I tried to help her. I talked to Tommy, begged him to stop cheating on his wife and treat her better, but he yelled at me.
Stay out of my life, Nora. This is none of your business. I'll deal with you if you don't leave my marriage alone.
I backed off, but my heart ached for Sarah. Tommy was a storm, destroying everyone in his path, and I knew he wouldn't stop with her. Then Dad died. It was a sudden heart attack that took him in his sleep. Mom had passed years before, so it was just me, Tommy, and the will. Dad left behind a fortune: houses, land, bank accounts, stocks. Tommy got 80%, the big house, the lake cabin, most of the money. I got only 20%, which was a small apartment building and some cash. It wasn't fair, but I wasn't shocked. Dad always chose Tommy. I was hurt, but I was still grateful for what I got. It was enough to assist in building a future with my husband, Jack, who was a cop.
You deserved more, Nora, but we'll make this work.
I wanted to move on and focus on my life with Jack, but Tommy couldn't let it go. He wanted everything. Every dollar, every property, every piece of Dad's legacy. He showed up at my house the day after the funeral.
That apartment building should be mine, Nora. Dad would have wanted me to have it.
He gave it to me, Tommy. You got way more than I did.
More? You think I'm gonna let you keep anything? You don't deserve it. Hand over the deeds or I'll make your life hell.
I refused to be scared of him. He kept threatening me, but I didn't bow to him. Tommy wasn't just spoiled anymore. He was dangerous. About 6 months later, I learned he'd already gambled away half his inheritance. He still kept cheating on Sarah without shame, and now he was heavily coming for me. He thought he could bully me like he did when we were kids. But I wasn't a scared little girl anymore. Tommy didn't stop. For weeks, he hounded me. He called at midnight, sent threatening texts, even showed up at my workplace.
You're stealing from me, Nora. Give me what's mine or you'll regret it.
When I told Jack everything, he was so angry.
How dare he threaten you over such little inheritance? Is it your fault that he can't keep his own?
I just wish he would stop all these.
He's not gonna stop, Nora. We need to protect you. And that property.
Jack was my strength. He'd seen men like Tommy before. Bullies who thought they were above the law, so he knew how to handle them.
We're gonna set a trap. He's greedy. He'll walk right into it.
I trusted Jack completely. Tommy had taken too much from me. Our parents' love, my peace, my sense of safety. I was done letting him win. Jack knew Tommy was reckless enough to break the law. We took the real property deeds and locked them in a safe deposit box at the bank. Then Jack made fake documents, exact copies that looked real. We put them in a locked drawer in my home office, a bait Tommy couldn't resist. Jack installed tiny cameras around the house, hidden in corners, catching every angle. He called his partner, Mike, a cop he trusted with his life. Mike agreed to watch the street, ready to move if Tommy showed up.
If he breaks in, we've got him. He'll wish he never messed with us.
I was nervous about everything, but Jack's confidence steadied me. We were ready. Tommy had no idea what was coming. One night, Tommy's childhood friend sent me a text, warning that Tommy was planning to break into my house. He said Tommy had confided in him, asking him to help, but he refused. Tommy wanted the property deeds, and he said he'd make me pay for not handing them over. I showed the message to Jack.
Good. Let him come. We're waiting.
I knew he would want to come at night, so we went to bed at our usual bedtime. But we didn't sleep. We just lay in bed and turned off the lights to make him think we were asleep. Around 2 a.m., I heard someone opening the door and the sound of footsteps. I knew immediately that Tommy was inside. I was so scared, but Jack squeezed my hand, keeping me still. The cameras were rolling, catching every move. Tommy crept through the house wearing a black hoodie. He went straight to my office, his flashlight beam dancing on the walls. He pried open the locked drawer with a screwdriver, his hands so quick and greedy. He pulled out the fake deeds, his face lighting up with a stupid grin.
Too easy, stupid Nora.
He didn't know Jack was watching from the hallway. He didn't know Mike was outside, radioing for backup. Tommy stuffed the papers in his jacket and turned to leave. That's when Jack flicked on the light and spoke up.
Going somewhere, Tommy?
Tommy froze. His eyes grew wide and the papers slipped from his hands. He tried to run, but Jack was faster. He tackled him to the floor, pinning his arms behind his back.
Get off me, you idiot. You can't do this. I'm your wife's brother. You're harassing me. Breaking and entering, theft, attempted fraud. Oh, I can do this. I don't care who you are to me. You're nothing but a robber right now. You're under arrest.
Mike burst through the door with 2 other cops. They cuffed Tommy, ignoring his screams.
You, Nora, you set me up. You're gonna pay for this, Nora. I hate you. I swear you'll pay for this.
No, Tommy, you're the one paying now. They dragged him to the squad car and his shouting stopped once he was pushed in. I stood in the doorway. My hands were shaking, but I felt relieved. For the first time since he's been threatening me, I felt free. Tommy thought he could take everything from me, but he was wrong. He was kept in a cell before a case was filed. Jack made sure he was tortured properly. He wanted to make sure Tommy learned his lesson before going to jail. Finally, after 3 days in cell, he was brought to court. The trial was very fast and brutal. Jack made sure of it. Tommy tried to deny it, telling the judge that I was acting out of jealousy, but the cameras showed everything. Tommy sneaking in, breaking the drawer, stealing the papers. His fingerprints were all over the screwdriver, the drawer, the fake deeds. The judge didn't care about his pleading or his sob story. Breaking and entering, theft, and a pile of gambling debts that came out in court sealed his fate. He got 5 years in prison. Sarah sat in the courtroom. She told me she was ready to testify against Tommy if the need ever came. She was desperate about him going to jail. She was the happiest when he was sentenced, dancing in his face. She filed for divorce the next day, and this time, Tommy couldn't stop her.
I'm done, Nora. I should have stood my ground and left him years ago. Thank you.
I hugged her tight. I was so happy for her. Tommy's world was falling apart, but I wasn't done. He'd hurt too many people. Sarah, me, even strangers he'd conned for his bets. I wanted him to feel the weight of every choice he'd made. Jack and I kept digging. He used his cop connections to uncover Tommy's secrets. Offshore accounts, loan sharks, cheated business partners. We found proof he'd scammed people out of thousands, all to feed his gambling. Jack turned it all over to the district attorney. They froze Tommy's accounts, seized the lake cabin, and sold it to pay his debts. His 80% of the inheritance? Gone. Every dollar he'd flaunted, every penny he'd gambled, vanished. The big house was repossessed when he couldn't pay the taxes. Tommy had nothing left. 2 years later, I got a call. Tommy was out on parole and he was broke and desperate. He was living in a halfway house, scraping by on odd jobs. Jack and I decided to see him. Not out of kindness, but because I needed to face him. We drove to the house. Tommy was outside, sitting on a bench, his face thin, his clothes cheap and worn. He looked old and broken, nothing like the golden boy he used to be. He saw me and froze.
Nora, why are you here?
I want you to see what you've lost. You took everything from me. You thought you were untouchable, didn't you? You cheated on Sarah, gambled away Dad's money, and tried to steal from me. Look at you now, broke and alone. You're nothing.
I'm sorry, Nora. I was stupid. I messed up. Please help me.
Help you? You're not my brother anymore. You're a thief, a liar, a bully. You got exactly what you deserved. You'll keep living miserably like this while I enjoy my life. I turned and walked away. Tommy called my name, but I didn't look back. He'd made his choices, and now he was living with them. A few months later, I heard rumors that, because money was tight, he started working for a garbage company, driving trucks to pick up trash. Most of his friends cut him off now that he's broke. He often tries to contact me, but I've blocked his number. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
But until I turned 18, I would need a guardian. As Carver's only living relatives, you have the first right to guardianship. His parents' will expresses their hope that you would fulfill this role if needed.
That's preposterous. We're too old. We can't be expected to raise a teenager.
Especially not one with his particular needs. Surely there are social services for this sort of situation? I'm right here. I can hear you.
Don't be rude, Carver. Adults are talking.
I'll never forget the way Mr. Mung looked at them, with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. He explained that if they refused guardianship, I would enter the foster care system until my 18th birthday, which was still 8 months away. They didn't even hesitate before signing the papers relinquishing any responsibility for me. As we left the office, my grandmother had the audacity to pat my shoulder.
It's for the best, really. You wouldn't have been comfortable with us anyway.
I was placed with the Ramirez family, a kind-hearted couple who had fostered dozens of children over the years. I once believed that love could transcend everything: race, prejudice, hatred. My parents proved it was possible, even in a world determined to tear them apart. My name is Carver, and this is the story of how I lost the two people who loved me unconditionally, endured rejection from those who should have embraced me, and ultimately found my own path to justice. My father, William, was a brilliant engineer with kind eyes and a patient demeanor. My mother, Amara, was a professor whose laugh could fill an entire room with warmth. They met at a university fundraiser, fell madly in love, and married despite the disapproval that surrounded them. I was born 2 years later, their perfect blend, as my mother used to say. Our home was filled with books, music, and endless conversations about everything under the sun. Dad taught me to build model bridges that could hold impossible weights, while Mom introduced me to literary worlds with enthusiasm. They created a sanctuary for me, a place where my mixed heritage was celebrated rather than scrutinized. But outside our home, reality was different. My father's parents, Richard and Eleanor, never accepted my mother or me. The first time I remember meeting them, I was about 5 years old. We had gone to their sprawling colonial home for Christmas dinner, an annual attempt by my father to bridge the divide between his parents and his chosen family.
William, he's getting darker, isn't he? I had hoped he would favor your side more as he grew.
Children's skin tones often deepen as they develop, Eleanor. He's perfect exactly as he is.
Well, let's hope he at least inherited your intellect, William. Lord knows what else he got from the other side. Dad, that's enough. If you can't speak respectfully about my wife and son, we'll leave right now.
Well, don't let the door hit you on the way out. Because in this house, we speak the truth, and the truth is that their kind don't mix well with ours.
My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. My mother's hand squeezed mine under the table, and I knew even then that she was teaching me strength through dignity. We stayed through that uncomfortable dinner, but I remember the car ride home was filled with Mom softly crying while Dad apologized over and over. As I grew older, these uncomfortable visits became less frequent. By the time I was 12, we would only see my grandparents at major holidays or family functions that couldn't be avoided. During one particularly tense Thanksgiving when I was 14, my grandfather cornered me alone in the hallway. You know, boy, you could pass for Italian or something if you tried. Why do you insist on wearing those urban clothes? Your father comes from a respectable family. You should try to honor that part of your heritage. These are just normal clothes, Grandpa. And I'm proud of all of my heritage. Both sides. Pride. That's the problem with you people. Always so proud when you should be grateful. What does that mean? It means that most black people are lazy and ungrateful and also disrespectful. Those urban clothes make you look like a thug. I walked away, choking back tears. When I told my parents what happened on the drive home, my mother was furious, but my father seemed resigned. They're from a different time, Carver. It doesn't excuse it, but I keep hoping exposure to you will change them. You're too wonderful not to love.
Some people choose not to see what's right in front of them, baby. Their blindness doesn't diminish your light.
I held on to those words like a lifeline during every interaction with my grandparents. Their disapproval stung, but my parents' love was a shield that made me feel invincible. Then came the accident. A rainy night, a truck driver who'd fallen asleep at the wheel, and in an instant, both my parents were gone. I was 17, so close to adulthood, but still legally a child. In my grief, I was forced to face a terrifying reality. My only living relatives were the grandparents who had never wanted me in the first place. The day after the funeral, my father's lawyer requested a meeting with Richard and Eleanor. I sat there, still numb with grief, as Mr. Mung explained that my parents had left everything to me. Their modest but beautiful home, their savings, and a life insurance policy that would cover my college education. But until I turned 18, I would need a guardian. As Carver's only living relatives, you have the first right to guardianship. His parents' will expresses their hope that you would fulfill this role if needed.
That's preposterous. We're too old. We can't be expected to raise a teenager.
Especially not one with his particular needs. Surely there are social services for this sort of situation? I'm right here. I can hear you.
Don't be rude, Carver. Adults are talking.
I'll never forget the way Mr. Mung looked at them, with a mixture of disgust and disbelief. He explained that if they refused guardianship, I would enter the foster care system until my 18th birthday, which was still 8 months away. They didn't even hesitate before signing the papers relinquishing any responsibility for me. As we left the office, my grandmother had the audacity to pat my shoulder.
It's for the best, really. You wouldn't have been comfortable with us anyway.
I was placed with the Ramirez family, a kind-hearted couple who had fostered dozens of children over the years. They gave me space to grieve and stability during the most painful time of my life. But while I was adjusting to my new reality, my grandparents were moving into my parents' home, claiming they needed to maintain the property until I came of age. When I turned 18 and attempted to reclaim my inheritance, I discovered they had changed the locks and refused to leave. They argued that they had invested in maintenance and improvements and deserved compensation. Mr. Meng assured me we could fight them legally, but warned it would be a lengthy process. I decided to focus on my education instead. The life insurance money funded my pre-med studies, and I worked multiple jobs to support myself through medical school. By the time I was older, I had become one of the youngest cardiothoracic surgeons at Boston Memorial Hospital, specializing in high-risk procedures that few others could perform. Success became my revenge. Each achievement, each life I saved, felt like a tribute to my parents and a repudiation of my grandparents' low expectations. I barely thought about them anymore, having accepted that my parents' home and possessions were a small price to pay for freedom from their toxic presence. Then, on an otherwise ordinary day, they appeared in my office waiting room. My grandfather looked frail, years older than his actual age, while my grandmother maintained her rigid posture and judgmental gaze.
Carver, you look professional. Your father would be pleased.
What do you want? Can't grandparents visit their only grandson without an ulterior motive? In my experience with you two, no, I stared
We've had time to reflect, Carver. We regret not being there for you after your parents passed. We'd like to make amends.
at them, searching for sincerity and finding none. Before I could respond, my grandfather clutched his chest and began wheezing. Between labored breaths, he explained that he needed a specialized procedure, a transcatheter aortic valve replacement with a complex anatomical variation that few surgeons would attempt. Your colleague, Dr. Whitman, said you're the only one in the state who could perform it successfully. Our insurance won't cover the full cost, and we're not as financially secure as we once were.
What your grandfather is trying to say is that we need your help, Carver. We're family after all.
Family? That's rich, coming from you. Where was this family sentiment when I needed a home after losing my parents? People make mistakes. We were old, set in our ways. Can't you find it in your heart to forgive? As they spoke, a realization dawned on me. In all these years focused on my career, I had completely forgotten about my parents' house, the home they had lovingly built together, filled with their books, photographs, and memories. The home that, legally, still belonged to me. I'll do the surgery, on one condition. You need to sign a comprehensive liability waiver. A waiver? Is that really necessary between family? It's standard practice for high-risk procedures. Sign it, or find another surgeon. They signed without reading the fine print, a desperation that spoke volumes. I scheduled the surgery for the following week, telling myself I was simply doing my job. But as I prepared for the procedure, darker thoughts invaded my mind. I thought of my mother's tears, my father's futile hope that his parents would change, and my own loneliness in the foster system. The day of the surgery arrived. As my grandfather was placed under anesthesia, I stood over him, scalpel in hand, the ultimate power in my grasp. I performed the procedure exactly as required. I was a doctor, after all, bound by oath to do no harm. But when the time came to use the surgical instruments, I deliberately bypassed the sterilization verification protocol. The tools I used carried microscopic pathogens, nothing that would be immediately obvious, but enough to guarantee infection. The surgery itself was a technical success. My grandfather was discharged 3 days later, with instructions for follow-up care. Within a week, he was back in the emergency room with a raging infection. Sepsis set in rapidly, attacking his weakened heart and compromised immune system. I visited him in the ICU, maintaining my professional demeanor as I explained the complications to my grandmother.
This is your fault. You did this to him. We should never have trusted an animal like you.
Mrs. Wilson, Infections are a known risk of any surgical procedure. Your husband signed a waiver acknowledging these risks. I'm sorry, but his advanced age makes fighting this infection particularly difficult. He died 3 days later, after hours of excruciating pain that no amount of morphine could fully mask. At his funeral, attended by barely a dozen people, my grandmother approached me with threats of legal action and accusations of misconduct.
I know what you did. I'll ruin your career. I'll tell everyone what kind of monster you are.
I performed a high-risk surgery that no one else would attempt. The waiver grandfather signed is legally binding. But that's not all we need to discuss, Grandma.
What are you talking about?
I want my house back, my parents' house. You have 30 days to vacate the property.
You can't do that. We've lived there for 13 years. We've made it our home.
It was never your home. It was my parents' home. And legally, it's mine. I've allowed you to live there rent-free only because I forgot about it while building my career. That oversight ends now. She fought me, of course, hired lawyers, claimed adverse possession, even tried to forge documents suggesting my father had promised them the house. But Mr. Mung had maintained meticulous records, and the legal battle was brief and decisive. On the day of the eviction, I stood across the street and watched as officers escorted my grandmother from the property. She screamed obscenities, claiming I was Satan's spawn, finally showing her true colors for all the neighbors to see.
You can't do this to me. I'm an old woman. Where am I supposed to go?
Ma'am, you need to vacate the premises as ordered by the court. Do you have someone you can call?
All our friends are dead. Our money is gone. He knows this. He's doing this to punish me.
I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Within a month, I sold the house to a young interracial couple at well below market value. I didn't need the money. My surgical practice provided more than enough. What I needed was closure. My grandmother ended up in a state-funded nursing home, her Social Security barely covering the cost of her care. I sometimes wonder if she reflects on her choices, if she recognizes that her own prejudice and cruelty carved the path to her current circumstances. As for me, I established a scholarship in my parents' names for mixed-race students pursuing medical careers. Each year, I tell new recipients about William and Amara, about their love, their courage, and their belief that compassion should extend to everyone, regardless of background. Sometimes I think about what my parents would say about my actions. Would they be disappointed in my vengeance, or would they understand the justice in it? I'll never know. But I do know that in my operating room, saving lives day after day, I honor their memory in the way that matters most, by being the man they raised me to be, despite everything that tried to break me. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment. But I hid all of it from my parents. They had no idea who I'd become, and I liked it that way. One day, I had an accident. It was raining heavily and my car skidded off the road. I was rushed to the hospital by some passers-by. The nurse managed to access my phone and called the number I listed as next of kin. That was my father's number. True to their nature, my parents came, but didn't stay for long. While I was still in the emergency room, they left. Apparently, Jane had called them to tell them she'd just gotten a promotion at her company, so they rushed off to celebrate with her, leaving me all by myself. I spent 2 whole weeks in the hospital. Through every needle, every test, every lonely night, it was Miss Evelyn who stayed by my side. She brought food, paid for my medicine, helped me to the bathroom, and talked to me like I mattered. I didn't cry, but my heart was shattered. That accident opened my eyes. As soon as I was discharged, I packed my things. My name is Clement. Sometimes I wonder what my life would have been like if I had been born a girl. Before my parents even got married, they used to talk about their future family. My mother told people she didn't want sons. She wanted only daughters. Same with my father. Maybe it was because they both grew up in houses full of boys, no sisters. So when they met and fell in love, they made a promise. They would have only girls. When my mother got pregnant, they were the happiest people in the world. They bought so many baby things, tiny pink dresses, soft dolls, ribbons, and little shoes covered in flowers. They even painted my room light pink with white stars. They didn't want to check the baby's gender. They didn't care what the scan said. They believed, without a doubt, that it was a girl. But it wasn't. It was me, a boy. They said my mother didn't even smile when she held me for the first time. My father looked away. Nobody celebrated. No balloons, no laughter. Just silence. That was the beginning. Growing up, I always knew something was wrong. My parents didn't look at me the way they looked at other kids. They didn't hug me much. They didn't laugh at my jokes or smile when I did well. Sometimes I felt invisible. I still had all the baby things they bought. My room was pink. My toys were dolls. My clothes at first were tiny dresses. I'd cry when they dressed me up like that, but they didn't care. They called me a mistake.
You ruined our plans.
We prayed for a daughter, and we got you. As I got older and started looking more like a boy, their anger grew. I'd try to cut my hair, and my mother would scream at me. When I wanted to play football with the kids outside, my father would lock me inside the house. They stopped buying me birthday gifts. At school, when other kids' parents came for visiting day, I'd sit alone. Teachers noticed. Some of them tried to help, but I always told them everything was fine. But it wasn't. I tried my best to be a good son. I cleaned. I studied hard. I stayed quiet. But nothing I did made them happy. I used to think maybe if I was more girly, they'd love me. So for a while, I tried to act soft, stay gentle, and not speak up too much. But even then, they found something to hate. You're weak.
You should have never been born.
It hurt. Every word, every cold glance, every ignored question. It all stayed in me, like heavy stones in my chest. I didn't ask to be born a boy. I didn't ask to be born at all. But there I was. A mistake in the eyes of the people who were supposed to love me first. When I turned 13, something happened that changed everything again. My mother got pregnant again. I couldn't understand what I felt when I heard her sharing the news with my dad. They had been trying for years. I knew how much they wanted another child. No, not just another child. I knew how much they wanted a girl. This time, they didn't take chances. They checked the gender right away, and it was a girl. Their joy filled the whole house. For the first time in years, I saw my parents smiling happily. Not at me, of course, but at each other, at the scan photos, and at the baby things they immediately started buying. The pink walls came back, this time in the room across from mine. They even threw a small party for family and friends to celebrate. I stood there in the corner, just watching. Nobody asked how I felt. Nobody even noticed me. It was like the whole family was against me. From that moment, I stopped existing in their eyes. They named her Jane before she was even born. They said her name with love, like it was music. I'd hear my dad say things like, "Our real blessing is finally coming." It stung, but I didn't say a word. I always just went back to my room and stayed quiet whenever they said things like that. When Jane was finally born, the house changed. Everything was brighter, louder, and happier. Visitors came in every day with gifts. My mother would carry Jane around like a trophy. My father walked taller and prouder. It was like they had forgotten I was their first child. They took a family picture without me in it and framed it in the living room. Jane was like a little queen. Whatever she wanted, she got. Toys, clothes, sweets, even things she didn't ask for. I remember once, I asked for a new pair of shoes because mine had holes in them. My father looked at me and said, "Why should we waste money on you? You can walk around barefoot for all I care." That same evening, they bought Jane a bicycle just because she said she liked the color, and I watched it all happen. They loved her and hated me. When Jane cried, they would rush to her side, hold her, kiss her. When I got sick once, they told me to take water and sleep it off. I had a fever for 2 days and no one even checked on me. I started spending more time outside, at school, in the library, anywhere that wasn't home, since home didn't feel like home anymore. Sometimes Jane would even throw things at me or call me names. My parents would laugh or say things like,
He deserves it.
"Don't dare try to hit her back or you'll be in trouble." But I wasn't jealous. I just wanted to feel like I mattered. After high school, I told my parents I wanted to go to college, but they laughed at me.
Go to college? With whose money?
"Don't waste our time. You're not even worth the food we give you." They made it very clear that there was no future for me under their roof. But I didn't give up. I found a small boutique nearby that was looking for help. The owner was a kind woman named Miss Evelyn. She hired me as a salesman. Miss Evelyn treated me like her own child. For the first time, someone looked at me with kindness and care. She noticed I was smart and hardworking. I always came early, swept the shop, arranged things neatly, and talked nicely to customers. One day, I told her we could try advertising the boutique online. I created social media pages, posted pictures of our clothes, wrote catchy captions, and responded to messages. Soon, people started coming in saying they saw our posts online. Orders began pouring in from other towns, too. Miss Evelyn was so impressed.
Clement, I've never seen a boy your age work this hard. Would you like to run this place with me?
I almost cried because no one had ever believed in me like that. I said yes. From that day, we became a team. We worked day and night. We saved every little extra we made. After 1 year, we had enough to move into a bigger space in town and expand the boutique. It was twice the size of the old one, with better shelves, more clothes, and even changing rooms. Everything changed. I started making real money. I could buy what I needed. I dressed well, ate well. But even with all the success, I didn't want to move out of my parents' house just yet. I don't know why. Maybe a part of me still wanted to be accepted. Maybe I still hoped they would one day say, "We're proud of you." When they noticed I was doing okay, they started giving me bills.
The house needs food. You're the one eating the most.
"This roof isn't free. Pay rent or move out." Then they said Jane needed help with school. They didn't ask if I could help, they just gave me the bills. And I paid them. Miss Evelyn kept telling me to move out.
You don't owe those people anything, Clement. You're not their slave.
But I still waited. By the time Jane finished college, I had become very rich. Not just comfortable, but rich. I had saved smart, invested wisely, and worked like my life depended on it. I bought 2 houses. Miss Evelyn and I now owned 3 large boutiques across the city. We had a small team of staff that we never owed, but I hid all of it from my parents. They had no idea who I'd become, and I liked it that way. One day, I had an accident. It was raining heavily and my car skidded off the road. I was rushed to the hospital by some passers-by. The nurse managed to access my phone and called the number I listed as next of kin. That was my father's number. True to their nature, my parents came, but didn't stay for long. While I was still in the emergency room, they left. Apparently, Jane had called them to tell them she'd just gotten a promotion at her company, so they rushed off to celebrate with her, leaving me all by myself. I spent 2 whole weeks in the hospital. Through every needle, every test, every lonely night, it was Miss Evelyn who stayed by my side. She brought food, paid for my medicine, helped me to the bathroom, and talked to me like I mattered. I didn't cry, but my heart was shattered. That accident opened my eyes. As soon as I was discharged, I packed my things and left my parents' house for good. They didn't call to ask where I was going. They didn't even ask if I had healed, but I didn't care anymore. I was done with them. Miss Evelyn supported me even more after that. I threw myself into work. Our businesses kept growing. I started mentoring young people. I even donated money and clothes to orphanages. 5 years later, I got a call from a strange number. Hello? All I heard was sobbing on the other end. Then a weak, tired voice said my name.
Clement, my son, please, don't hang up.
I listened to her as she told me everything. Apparently, after I left, things changed. Jane lost her job a few months later. She became depressed, started drinking heavily, and began sleeping with random men. My parents were too ashamed to ask anyone for help. One day, drunk and angry, Jane got into an argument with my father. In her rage, she stabbed him in the chest. He died before the ambulance could arrive. Jane was arrested and later sentenced to life in prison. But not long after, they discovered she was pregnant. In prison, she gave birth to triplets, all girls. 2 of them were born with disabilities.
I've used all I have to take care of them. I've sold everything we own. I'm broke. I'm old. Please, Clement, help me. They're just children. They didn't do anything wrong. For their sake, forgive us.
I laughed at her foolishness. How could she dare ask me for forgiveness? Anyway, I gave her a piece of my mind. Well, I wasn't a criminal. I wasn't drunk. I wasn't a mistake. But you treated me like one. You celebrated Jane for everything, even when I was lying in a hospital bed. Now, your perfect daughter left you with 3 liabilities and you're trying to involve me? You should consider yourself a comedian if you think I'll send even a cent to you. Take care of your princess's babies yourself. I stopped being your son after that accident. Before she could say anything, I hung up and blocked her number because that's what she deserves.
The moment I was placed in her arms, she looked at me with disgust. There was no love or joy in her eyes, just a deep, unyielding anger.
Great. Not only are you a mistake, but you're also defective.
She never held me the way a mother should. She never soothed me when I cried or comforted me when I was scared. Instead, she ignored me or punished me for things I couldn't control. If I didn't understand something fast enough, she would yell at me. If I didn't do something the right way, she would punish me, as though I was deliberately trying to disappoint her. As I grew, her resentment turned into cruelty. She never enrolled me in school. She didn't care that I had the potential to learn and grow. She just saw me as a burden. When I asked about school or if I could play with other children, she told me it was pointless.
What's the point? You're never going to be anything anyway. You'll never amount to anything. The kids are going to get bored of you. Why bother them? Stay indoors and rot. Why do I even bother?
When I made a mistake, whether it was spilling a glass of water or not cleaning my room well enough, she would punish me in extreme ways. Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I've lived a life of rejection, neglect, and abandonment. Most people would think that a mother should love and protect her child no matter what, but I was never given that privilege. My mother, Sarah, didn't love me. She resented me, hated me, in fact. She couldn't stand that I existed, and it wasn't just because I had Down syndrome. I ruined her life, or at least that's what she always told me. To understand why she hated me so much, you have to know how I came into this world. It wasn't the story of a loving couple bringing a child into the world with hope and excitement. No, my story started with a mistake. At least, to her it was. Sarah was rebellious from the start, the black sheep of the family. She didn't want to live by anyone's rules, especially her parents, who were strict, old-fashioned people. At the age of 20, she decided to leave everything behind, her home, her family, the small-town life that was choking her spirit. She wanted more than what her parents expected of her, and she thought she'd find it in the big city. It didn't take long for her to meet someone who promised her the excitement she craved. His name was Jack, and he was everything she wanted. Their affair was nothing more than a brief fling, but it would have lifelong consequences. When Sarah found out she was pregnant, her world collapsed. The life she had envisioned was gone in an instant. She was 21, pregnant, and scared. She thought about aborting me but couldn't bring herself to go through with it. Instead, she chose to keep me, but her bitterness grew every day. She began telling me how everything is my fault right from when she was still pregnant with me. She would always say how I ruined everything from her, as if I'd personally asked to be brought to Earth. When I was born, she wasn't happy. I wasn't the beautiful, healthy baby she'd hoped for. I had Down syndrome, a diagnosis that made her hate me even more. The moment I was placed in her arms, she looked at me with disgust. There was no love or joy in her eyes, just a deep, unyielding anger.
Great. Not only are you a mistake, but you're also defective.
She never held me the way a mother should. She never soothed me when I cried or comforted me when I was scared. Instead, she ignored me or punished me for things I couldn't control. If I didn't understand something fast enough, she would yell at me. If I didn't do something the right way, she would punish me, as though I was deliberately trying to disappoint her. As I grew, her resentment turned into cruelty. She never enrolled me in school. She didn't care that I had the potential to learn and grow. She just saw me as a burden. When I asked about school or if I could play with other children, she told me it was pointless.
What's the point? You're never going to be anything anyway. You'll never amount to anything. The kids are going to get bored of you. Why bother them? Stay indoors and rot. Why do I even bother?
When I made a mistake, whether it was spilling a glass of water or not cleaning my room well enough, she would punish me in extreme ways. One time, I accidentally broke her favorite vase while dusting. She didn't speak to me for days after that. She locked me in my room, refusing to feed me. When she did let me out, She told me I was a failure.
You can't do anything right. You don't deserve anything from me.
It wasn't just neglect. It was active hatred. She took pleasure in my suffering. Every time I would reach out for affection, she would pull away. I learned to stop trying because it only made things worse. By the time I turned 10, things had only gotten worse. Sarah had met a man named Victor. He was different from Jack. He was controlling and manipulative, but Sarah was in love with him, or at least she thought she was. When they started dating, she changed. She became more distant and cold, and the cruelty she showed me became even more pronounced. Victor didn't like me. He didn't like that I existed. He thought I was a hindrance to Sarah's freedom, and Sarah, desperate to keep him in her life, agreed.
Get rid of the kid. She's just a burden.
It didn't take long for Sarah to make a decision. One evening, she told me we were going somewhere. I thought it was a treat, maybe to the park or the zoo. But instead, she took me to an unfamiliar building. When I asked where we were going, she didn't answer. She just kept walking until we entered the building, and she handed me over to a woman.
Take care of her. She's yours now.
And then she turned around and walked out without even a second glance. I called out for her, cried, and begged her to come back, but she didn't even slow down. I was left in a strange place, surrounded by people I didn't know, with no idea what was happening. The woman, who was a staff member at the orphanage, looked at me with pity but didn't say anything. She just took my hand and led me inside. I waited. For days, I waited, thinking that Sarah would come back for me. I told myself that it was all a mistake, that she was just temporarily upset, but she never came back. It wasn't until much later that I realized what had happened. Sarah had abandoned me, not because she couldn't care for me, but because she didn't want me. She had finally chosen Victor over me, and I was nothing more than an obstacle in her pursuit of happiness. The orphanage became my new home. It wasn't perfect, but for the first time, I was treated with kindness. I met other children who were like me, children who had been abandoned by their families, children who understood what it felt like to be rejected. But the scars my mother left on me ran deep. Every time I looked at myself in the mirror, I heard her voice.
You're worthless. You'll never be good enough for anyone.
After spending a whole year at the orphanage, I was finally adopted by a middle-aged couple. They were kind, with gentle faces and warm hearts. Rob and Mary had already raised their children, all of whom were adults with lives of their own. They wanted to open their home to someone who needed care, and they chose me. They were patient and understanding with me. They enrolled me in a special school. My new brothers and sisters, even though they were much older than me, treated me with the same kindness and love they had for their own children. I never lacked for affection. They treated me as their own, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly loved. In their home, I found peace. I forgot about Sarah. I forgot the cruelty, the neglect, the hatred she had held for me. In my new home, I had challenges that came with having Down syndrome. But Rob and Mary never treated me as anything less than capable. They nurtured my dreams, encouraged me to pursue what I wanted in life, and showed me the value of hard work and dedication. I eventually went on to run my own business at age 24. I also started an NGO that provided support for children with special needs, making sure they had access to the resources they deserved. My life wasn't perfect, but it was full. I had purpose, I had love, and I felt complete. I thought I had finally escaped my past, but then everything changed. Sarah suddenly showed up. I was shocked, wondering what she was doing at my office. She was looking older, worn down. The woman who had once been my mother, who had abandoned me without a second thought. And then, my gaze shifted to the 3 teenagers standing beside her. They were all quiet, their eyes downcast. They looked so lost, so helpless. I knew immediately who they were. They were her children. What do you want?
Jennifer, I'm so sorry for coming here. I know it's shameless of me to show myself to you, but I need your help.
I couldn't move. The anger I had buried deep inside me flared to life. My help? After everything you've done to me?
I didn't mean it like that. I need someone to help me with them. These are my kids. They're triplets and disabled, as you can see. I need you to help me with them.
I looked at the teenagers again. They were so quiet, their faces full of confusion and uncertainty. They looked lost, just like I had once felt. I immediately understood what she meant. I can't believe you. You want to leave them at my foundation, don't you? How could you be so cruel?
No, I just can't do it on my own anymore. Victor, he left me. He couldn't handle it, Jennifer. He couldn't handle them. He said they're imbeciles. Even though they're his kids, he couldn't stand them.
Her words hit me like a slap in the face. Imbeciles. She was still calling her own children that? I could feel the anger rising up inside me, burning hotter with every passing second. How dare you? You left me. You abandoned me when I needed you. And now you're asking me to help you with this? To take them off your hands the way you took me to that orphanage?
I didn't want it to be this way. I never wanted to abandon you. I just didn't know what to do.
No, you don't get to play the victim here. You abandoned me. You're planning to abandon them. You never cared. You still don't. And now you want my help after everything? You're the one who needs to deal with this. Not me. She began sobbing.
I can't do this alone. I met someone, a man. He's nice. But if he knows about them, he'll never want me. I can't lose him, Jennifer. Please, please help me.
She was trying to get rid of them to make room for some man. The same thing she did to me. You're still the same. You haven't learned a thing. You haven't changed. You're still trying to run away, just like you ran from me.
Please, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything, Jennifer. I was wrong. I know that now.
I didn't believe her, not for a second. But something inside me snapped, and I acted on pure instinct. I raised my hand and slapped her hard. You don't get to do this. You don't get to leave them the way you left me. You owe them, Sarah. You owe them everything. You're going to take care of them.
But how will I even do that?
Don't you dare yell at me. I'll help you find a job. But if you try to leave them again, if you try to abandon them like you did me, I swear I'll make sure the police find you. You'll pay for what you've done.
Okay, I'll do anything. Please just help me. Help me do better.
I couldn't forgive her, not at all. But I wasn't going to let her abandon these children, not again. I'll help you, but only if you promise to do right by them. If you try to leave them, remember that I'll make sure the authorities know where you are. She nodded, already sobbing. I didn't know if she was truly sorry or if she was just scared, but I wasn't about to let her off easy. I helped Sarah find a job, not a fancy one, but as a cleaner at our NGO. It was something simple but steady, and I made sure she faced the consequences of her actions. Every day, I checked on her, ensuring she didn't slip back into her old ways. She wasn't perfect, but she was trying, and maybe that was enough for now. She had to take good care of her kids or face the wrath of the cops. Her new boyfriend eventually found out about her triplets and abandoned her, leaving her with no choice but to work as a cleaner to support them. I know it's not easy doing such job and taking care of 3 special need kids, but she deserves it. I made sure she didn't get any extra privileges. Sometimes colleagues would ask if she was really my mother, and I would deny it. Thanks for watching. I was dumbfounded and I really didn't know what to do. I of course took care of Jack after all, he is my nephew, but I had never anticipated having to not only pay for my own expenses, but those of a growing baby as well. I did my best, but I just couldn't make ends meet, and so I called Stacy. Stacy, you need to come home. I can't afford to take care of your son and pay my own bills.
Oh, for crying out loud. Don't be so stupid and bother me with this. Figure it out.
I've tried, but I'm really struggling here.
I don't care. He's your kid now. I want nothing to do with him. If you need help, give his father a call.
I had always known Stacy was irresponsible, but I never imagined she would just abandon her own child like this. Hi there. My name is Rebecca, and my sister Stacy is so incredibly irresponsible and cruel too. Stacy is 2 years older than me, and about a year ago she started dating a man named Jacob. He was really good for her, and he honestly came across as being a very upstanding and wonderful man. But of course, Stacy cheated on him and the relationship ended, but not before Stacy became pregnant. Of course, she didn't tell Jacob about the child, and later she gave birth to an adorable baby boy that she named Jack. From the moment I saw Jack, I loved him and wanted to spend all my free time playing and caring for him. Sadly, I am unable to have children of my own, and so instead, I wanted to live vicariously through Stacy. After she had recovered from her pregnancy, Stacy dropped a bombshell on me.
So now that the little monster is old enough, I can finally live my dream.
Old enough? He's only a couple months old. And what dream? What do you mean?
Oh, shut up, Rebecca. You know that I've always dreamed of being a movie star, and besides, you love kids, so you can watch Jack for me, right?
What do you mean? What are you gonna do? Stacy was very cagey about what she meant, but a week later I found out. She left in the middle of the night and left behind a note that said that she was heading to Hollywood to become a famous actress and that she was leaving Jack in my custody. I was dumbfounded and I really didn't know what to do. I of course took care of Jack after all, he is my nephew, but I had never anticipated having to not only pay for my own expenses, but those of a growing baby as well. I did my best, but I just couldn't make ends meet. And so I called Stacy. Stacy, you need to come home. I can't afford to take care of your son and pay my own bills.
Oh, for crying out loud. Don't be so stupid and bother me with this. Figure it out.
I've tried, but I'm really struggling here.
I don't care. He's your kid now. I want nothing to do with him. If you need help, give his father a call.
I had always known Stacy was irresponsible, but I never imagined she would just abandon her own child like this. Without any better options, I called up Jacob and begged him to help me with his son. He was floored by the news that he had a son at all, but once I was able to prove that he was indeed the father through a paternity test, he was completely on board with helping me out with him. Jacob gave me money and even volunteered to help take care of Jack as well. It really felt like I was finally getting a handle on things, at least with Jacob's help. As time went on, the three of us began to spend more time together, and I had to admit that I was beginning to fall in love with Jacob, and then one day he confessed that he felt the same way. After that, he moved in, and the three of us became a family. Meanwhile, Stacy was still chasing her dreams in Hollywood and would no longer answer my calls or messages, and on Jacob's suggestion, I contacted a lawyer and asked for them to send paperwork to Stacy for her to legally transfer parental rights over to me. After all, it was looking like she was never coming back, and if I was legally Jack's mother, then it would make life a lot easier, especially with government forms, and for when he went off to school and whatnot. To my surprise, the paperwork came back and Stacy had indeed signed the papers. I was now officially Jack's mother, and I was over the moon with happiness. In the months that followed, Jacob proposed, and within the year, the two of us were married, and that was when we officially became a family. I couldn't imagine my heart being any fuller when I found out that I was pregnant. Knowing that Jack would have a sibling and that Jacob and I would have another child filled me with so much joy. Jacob was just as happy with the news as I was, and we celebrated well into the night. I thought that things would be perfect when during my third trimester, Stacy returned to town. She looked terrible and had changed so much. Her skin was so pale, and she had dark circles under her eyes, and she had lost a lot of weight to a point where she was very underweight. Hey sis, I'm surprised to see you. I thought that you would be a big movie star any day now.
Oh, shut up, you annoying bitch. Listen, I need money. Can I have some to help get me back on my feet?
Well, I don't have much, but I can help out for sure. Yeah. Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. Hollywood didn't work out. Nobody has any good taste out there.
Oh, I see. It was of course a silly lie. The truth was that Stacy had no talent for acting and no one wanted to hire her. Trying to be a good sister, I gave her what money I could and even offered for her to sleep in the guest room, but she just took the money and left. A few days later, she came back, and when she saw that I was married to Jacob, she went crazy.
What is that loser doing here?
He's not a loser, and he is my husband, and Jack's father too.
You can't be serious?
Well, I am. Jacob and I met shortly after you left and we fell in love.
Whatever. Just give me more money. If you want to shackle yourself down with a loser husband and ugly children, then that is your problem.
I was furious with her, but she was still family, and so I gave her some more money and then went about my day. It was hard trying to focus after what she had said about my family. But the next day, I went out to run some errands, and when I got back home, I saw my sister's car in my driveway. Confused, I gathered up my bags and went inside and found my sister, naked in my kitchen, chasing after Jacob. He looked panicked and was running as quickly as he could away from her.
Stop running. We used to have sex years ago. Why wouldn't you want me now?
Because I love your sister and I hate you.
Neither had noticed me, and so I stepped into the room and tripped my sister, causing her to tumble face first into the counter, which split her lip.
You wretched bitch! Why did you do that?
Because you are trying to sexually assault my husband. I thought you weren't interested in him?
I wasn't. But then I saw him here, and I realized that I wanted him. He's made such a good husband and father, and I got jealous. Plus, he was mine first, so technically, he should belong to me.
Belong to you? He's not a possession. He's a living and feeing person. Now either get out of my house right now or I will force you out.
I would like to see you try. I will find a way to get him to leave you if it's the last thing I do.
That was it. That was the last straw. Before I knew what I was doing, I punched my sister as hard as I could in the face, and then, while she was dazed, I dragged her by the hair outside and threw her out the door. And yes, she was completely naked the entire time. My neighbors were outside and they were laughing at Stacy the entire time. Maybe I should have had some sympathy for her, but after the way she was behaving, I just couldn't. An hour later, I received a call from her begging me to help her bail out of jail. Apparently, someone had called the police and she had been arrested for public indecency. I can't say that she didn't deserve it, and honestly, it made me chuckle when she told me. I then told her that she wouldn't get another penny out of me or Jacob ever again, which made her incredibly angry. She swore and declared that as soon as she got out of jail, that she would come and kill both Jacob and I. I really couldn't believe that this strange woman was my sister. It honestly felt like she had been completely changed. I later found out that a large part of that was due to her getting involved with the wrong kinds of people while she was in Hollywood and getting addicted to drugs. Knowing this, Jacob and I took out restraining orders against her, and within 1 week of being let out of jail, she broke the order and tried to assault Jacob a second time. She was convinced that if he would just sleep with her, that he would leave me and take her back. But instead, he called the police to report her. But by the time they showed up, she had fled the scene. The absolute worst was a week later. Jacob was at work, and I was watching Jack and was busy making us lunch when I heard glass shattering and turned to see Stacy in our home. She had a knife and some rope, and it was clear that she meant me harm. Before I could react, she ran towards Jack, which made my motherly instincts go into overdrive, and I leapt at her and punched her until she stopped moving. Thankfully, she never had a chance to try to use the knife on me, as I attacked her too quickly. But when the police showed up, they found a notebook on her that detailed how she had planned to kidnap Jack and use him to get Jacob to go with her back out to Hollywood. She figured that with a husband and family, that she might have a second shot at becoming a star. It was all very sad and depressing, really. Later in court, the judge took some pity on her, but only a little. If she promised to see a psychiatrist, then he would give her a lesser sentence, but she refused, and so he sentenced her to 12 years in prison for breaking the restraining order, attempted kidnapping of a child, breaking and entering, and for assaulting me. And that is where she has been for the past few years. Jacob and I are debating what to tell Jack when he gets older. Right now, he is too young to understand, and we don't want to confuse him. As for our baby, we ended up having a little girl that we named Elsa. It hasn't been easy, but we have tried our best to put the chaos that Stacy brought into our lives into the past and move on, and I am happy to say that we make quite the loving and happy family. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.